final word from me on the other strand of this project, the looking at Clean Break as an organisation, how it works, not only what it does. And that is primarily Anne-Marie Green and I, and between us, no, actually separately, we have 20 plus years of research inside organisations, including in the FTSE100, small manufacturing companies, charities, government departments, and trade unions. So just to set the scene, tonight I want to focus on two themes that emerge from our research into Clean Break as an organisation, which actually seem to have come up in other ways in what other people have said. First, voice, as in, do different or dissenting views get heard in the organisation, and how effective are the mechanisms in the organisation for that to happen? And second, care, which we'll come back to. Both of these are also visible in Laura's responses to the research in the exhibition. So turning first to voice. In its early years, Clean Break was a collective with effectively horizontal decision-making. Then from the early 1990s, it moved to a conventional hierarchy and a very recognisable sort of pyramid shape. Although a few years ago it moved to a shared leadership model, Clean Break's management structure is the same as most or many organisations: a senior leadership team, departments with section heads, reporting lines from other staff levels, and overseen by a board. Clean Break values hierarchy as enabling clarity of responsibility. However, there's also been consciousness of, in the words of a former director, of not always needing to lead, and attempts at a more distributed leadership model within the pyramid, so that decisions are not always taken only at the very top. In terms of voice, there are formal and informal arenas where, again, to quote another director, staff feel capable of voicing provocations. And we've heard them, they really do. Voice mechanisms taken seriously in organisations means that decisions and processes can be frustrating. Yeah? They take longer and not everyone ends up happy. But all organisations are made up of people with different interests at different times. However, in Clean Break, unlike many other organisations, staff don't attribute lack of action to cynical reasons. It might also not be possible to address the discontent because of its size, because of lack of resources, but the approach remains. Clean Break's practices are not unusual, but the way they are practiced is unusual. Clean Break's values and mission aren't separate, but part of how it works as an organisation. And this is really challenging in 44 years of continual struggle around resources, of money, staff numbers, time, and yet they persist. And arguably, this is what enables them to persist, to give them sustainability. This links to the second theme tonight of care. This isn't care as disposition, you know, oh, she's so caring. But in the analysis of political scientist Joan Tronto and colleagues, care as recognition of and taking responsibility for our mutual needs. Mundane, daily practices across the economy and civil society stemming from respect and interdependence. Through lockdown, we had a vivid example of how Clean Break focused on the particular care needs of members, staff, of their freelance artists. They immediately set up a writing campaign from women on the outside of prison to those women now more deeply locked down inside. They arranged care packages for members, arranged laptops for members, an artistic programme that paired freelance artists with member artists to produce work with and for each other, rather than for any idea of public consumption. There was careful furloughing, maintaining contact, careful planning for reintegration, working very long hours, as we saw, with a purpose, seeing the needs, taking responsibility, giving and receiving care and voice. in sharper focus since the pandemic, there are growing pressures on conventional organisational structures across the economy. In September 2020, the economics think tank, the Women's Budget Group, released the final report of its Commission on a Gender Equal Economy. This presented a radical alternative to our present economic model. And the report noted that the pandemic had, quotes, given us some glimpses of what a caring economy might look like in the ways that neighbourhood groups sprang up to support people, especially vulnerable to the virus, but it has also showed us the many ways in which we have an uncaring economy, the symptoms of which were caused by, again, quote, entrenched inequality and neglect of well-being of people and planet. Related reports have come from the International Labour Organization, the World Economic Forum, the Institute for Public Policy Research, among many others. These reports highlight a growing insistence on the significance of the concept of care, whether it's named as care or not. Most of the adaptations the International Labour Organization and others recommend are already part of how Clean Break operates and always have. So you might ask, so what? What we have found is that Clean Break's organisational practices in relation to voice and care help achieve organisational objectives. The company largely meets the criteria argued for in organisational research as the conditions for best performance and competitive advantage. Clean Break provides longitudinal evidence that how a company operates and what it does can be animated by and comprise care and voice, not as additions, but as integral to optimum delivery, and that it's sustainable over decades. So what we say is, FTSE100, over to you.